Sorry, I interrupted. I'm
That,
just thought I better record this.
that's okay. I do not have musical talent. I can't sing a note. I don't play an instrument, but I love the drums. And I was sad to hear of Neil Peart's passing. I don't know. Do you know Kevin Anderson? I was thinking you do. Kevin J. Anderson. Maybe
No,
not. Kevin J.
no.
Anderson writes in the Star Wars and Dune franchises. He's had many, many New York Times bestsellers,
Oh, okay.
and runs a conference called Superstars,
Uh-huh.
which I think
hmm
this year was its maybe 11th iteration of Superstars. And I was a speaker and on a number of panels at Superstars. I've known him for a little while and written some of his descriptions. Well, he has done a couple projects with Neil Peart. And Kevin was a huge fan of Neil Peart's. And Neil Peart was a huge fan of Kevin J. Anderson. They didn't know each other.
Oh, interesting.
But he loved his books and had this idea and reached out to Kevin, and Kevin was like, I love Rush. I love everything you've done. And they just became instant friends. And so it's been hard for Kevin this year with Neil's passing and all. But I don't know why I brought that up. Neil Peart's a god on the drums. That's
Yes, yep. I felt really fortunate that they played one of their last concerts in Portland.
Oh,
So
very good.
I was able to go see it. It was a typical. It's so funny. I hadn't been to a concert like this for a long, long time. It was a typical stadium concert. It was a basketball stadium. So for a rock band, no, not where you want to see a rock band, but
No.
it was Rush, and it was their
It was
last
Rush,
tour.
yeah.
So I was so, it was
I've
so
only
amazing.
seen them once, and of course it was fantastic. My best friend in high school, his brother, and this was in high school, had seen them 18 times.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
And I graduated in 1985. I don't know how many times he's seen them since then. He is the biggest Rush fan I've ever known. And so my friend Rob's brother Ryan was going to see them, and I don't know if this was the 13th or 14th time, but they were playing in Dallas, and I grew up in Iowa. And so he had gone down there with his buddies. He was maybe a freshman in college, and he comes back, and we're like, well, how was the show? And he said it was great, but he had seen him 12 times maybe before, and of course they're always great. He said, but you know what? It wasn't the best show I saw. Friday night, we went to a bar and just saw this band. These three guys, and I couldn't believe that they were so good, and they were just playing in this kind of crappy bar near where we were staying. And we're like, wow. And he was telling us a little bit about it. A month later, the police, he didn't remember the name of the band. The Police came out with their first album. And so he saw the bar, he saw the Police,
Nuts.
Just right before they released their first album. And he said they were amazing. And he couldn't remember the name. And then months later, they come out with these things. That's them. I saw them. And so that's probably one of his favorite, live music stories.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. The Police were very different when they first started, when they were first touring.
Yeah, they absolutely were. And
yeah.
God,
I mean, I like their whole career. I like Sting's career. Big fans.
Absolutely.
And
well, shall we talk about the book business?
Sure. Let me do. I do this live. Basically, I don't do a lot of editing,
Sure.
although we just missed a lot of good podcast stuff. But that's something I'm learning as I go. I should start sooner.
That's okay. So
my
intro.
Yeah, I do a little intro and then we just go. I probably will go for about an hour today. If you have that time.
Oh yeah.
It's totally up to you.
No, that is fine. I can easily do an hour. I am nothing if not wordy.
My last podcast was with the keyboard player for Survivor. And
neat.
That's how I got connected to you.
Because of April Bielefeld.
Because of April, yeah.
Yeah.
She was nice enough to suggest several other people. And you look like a fun podcast. You look like you'd
April
be fun.
and I have been friends since kindergarten.
Yeah, you said that in your email. That's amazing.
We went to Northwood Elementary School. Wow. She is just delightful. She's always been delightful. And we lost touch after high school, but then the beauty of social media. That's how we found each other again, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And she started getting interested in podcasting and travel books. And she reached out to me. And of course, that's what I do, is help people with publishing. And so, I was thrilled to hear from April and pass on wisdoms and point her in the right direction. And I've got 2 groups with 11,000 people or authors in them. And so she wanted to interview authors from each state. So that was easy for me to make happen. And I think she is
that's really cool.
Sort of paying it back.
That's awesome. I didn't even realize she had a podcast. She's never mentioned it. She contacted, I don't know how
it's fairly new. Yeah. I don't know that there are
great.
100 subscribers yet. She interviewed me for that podcast. It's about travel. And I love travel. And so it was one of the rare podcasts where I was a guest unrelated to being an author.
I'm going to have to see, and I already thought I'm going to have to see if I can get her on the podcast.
Talk
about her podcast. That's a big part of my podcast is podcasts.
Oh, well, so. She's delightful and she's way cuter than me. I mean,
she's probably cuter than me too, but
she's cuter than a lot of people. Yeah. April's just a gem.
Mm-hmm. She was in the background for my podcast with Jeffrey, Jeff, and I don't think she knew it until about halfway through. I mentioned it. I mean, most people hear it anyway; they don't see it.
Were you still talking?
Okay, let me try. This intro will have music under it eventually, but let me try this. Hey, welcome back. It is Were You Still Talking? And again, on the Zoom, this is Joel Albrecht, and today we have Brian Meeks, which is a very special guest. Really happy to have him. He's a full-time author. He's written 19 novels under his name and a pen name. He's written 6 nonfiction titles, including Mastering Amazon Ads and Mastering Amazon Descriptions, which are the books that led to speaking at author conventions, including Kevin J. Anderson's Superstars and all of the 20 books to 50K conversions.
Clearly that's a typo.
Okay. No, that's great.
I screwed up the podcast. As
you
an
haven't.
Author, not being able to send you a proper bio.
I love this. This is my best intro yet. That's why I like.
Author can't write his own bio without help from his editing team.
Neither can I, but I'm not an author. I'm just a podcaster. Do you want me to do it again?
No, I wouldn't change anything about that intro.
It's perfect. It will include all of this now.
Fantastic. I'm thrilled to be here.
Really nice to have you. Great to have you. And I was just relating to Brian before we started. Actually, we had several really fun stories that, sorry, folks, you're just going to miss out. But if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're one of the few people who watches the video, he's actually using the same mic that I'm using under my laptop. That is, I'm using the case for his mic under my laptop, so it gets up to this. So
it's a quality case.
It is a great case. Yeah.
I don't have it within reach, but
I've got another one that I could show, but it's great. I
like good packaging.
Me too. Love it. And AKG does a really good job on the packaging and the mic. It's that's for that price point. That's a fantastic.
We could probably
mic.
do a show on packaging because the packaging from my my ears here was also delightful. I'm one of those people that struggles with keeping my place clean because I don't throw out really good boxes that I will never use again. Apple products, they come in these wonderful boxes.
Yeah.
And I have no need for them. Why do I keep them? But they pile up. And even there are some Apple boxes I have where I no longer have the Apple product.
And I'm in the same place, but it's mostly because of my wife. And you should keep Apple boxes because they're like $250 to $500 if you really look at the price point of Apple. right?
Oh, are they just the box?
I'm thinking the box is the difference. I love Apple products. Don't get me wrong, but I think that a lot of it is the box. It's the presentation.
It is the presentation, and I have an absolute love-hate relationship with Apple. I love their iPads. I love their iPhones. In fact, my iPhone 7, which you see here, tomorrow, sometime before 9:00, I will be trading in the 7 because I've already purchased, and it will be arriving the 12 Plus Max. I am very excited because I haven't upgraded in 5 generations.
Yes, this is what excites me because I have an iPhone 7 Plus. And
we have the same phone. Are you getting?
We have the same phone. I'm not yet because the price point is a little hard for me to swallow. It's not like I couldn't get it, but I have not had the approval yet. I'll just put it that way. I keep pushing for it, but I need exactly.
Yeah, can we work down here on that? I'd really like to. I am so passionate about photography. It's something that I love, and I have nice Nikon equipment, but the realities are carrying around a phone with the quality of even the lens on the 7 is wonderful. 12 megapixels.
Yeah.
But the 12 now has too many new photography features. We really don't have phones with cameras as much as we have cameras with phones. Because
we really have a computer with a phone. I mean, people it's a computer. It's not. Don't fool yourself. This is an iPad. It's just smaller. It's except for the iPad Pro. Now that's a whole new game. That's a game changer. But interesting that we're on this topic. Well, and me too. When I upgrade, it's for the camera. And I'm the same way. I love the pictures
and the new ones. Improvement with low light. That is a real draw for me because I enjoy photography. Everyone who likes photography loves the golden hour. The golden hour is the last hour or two before sunset, when the natural light is the warmest on the Kelvin scale. But then you get to beyond the golden hour where there's not quite enough light, and having that enhanced processing power and the magical things they do is going to let me get some shots that previously didn't really turn out that great. So I am tomorrow's Christmas. I don't care what the calendar says.
Great.
11/13 is Christmas for Brian.
I have the opposite experience tomorrow. I actually had to go into hyper mode today because my oral surgery got moved up. So instead of getting a new iPhone, I'm going in to have a surgeon work on extracting a tooth that's deep inside my head. And an interesting fact: your teeth aren't part of your body according to insurance.
Not according to science or the medical professionals,
or pain. I mean, pain will tell you teeth are part of you, but according to insurance,
I think this.
No.
This moment here is the beginning of a beautiful friendship because you're clearly fun to talk with. One thing you're going to learn about me, should we have future conversations, it's almost impossible for you to say something that doesn't remind me of a story. And I have an oral surgery story, if I may.
Oh my gosh, of course you may. This is a positive, podcast.
Uplifting.
And I'm a lazy podcaster, so the more stories you do, the more you talk, the better it is for me.
The year is 1985. A young high school senior has an appointment on Friday to get his 4 wisdom teeth cut out. He also has a crush on Jill Dasher, a cute sophomore, an adorable sophomore who he knows is going to be at the basketball game that night where Ames is playing their arch rival Valley. The massive crush I had, I knew about the appointment on Monday or Tuesday, and I told my mom, I said, after the surgery, which was around 10 or 11 in the morning, I was missing school for it. I said, that's great because then I can go to the game tonight. And my mom, an RN who knows a thing or two about surgery, said, yeah, you're not going to feel like going anywhere after having 4 wisdom teeth cut out. And I said, oh no, I'm going to the game. And she said, well, you're not going to drive because the pain meds they give you are pretty potent. And I said, that's fine. I won't take them. She said, your optimism is nice, but well, so I go in, have the surgery. And of course they knock you out for what was being done to me.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. I wake up at home, take a nap, get up, I don't know, 3, 4 in the afternoon. I mean, it was a long nap, but it was pretty well knocked out. And Mom said, would you like some of the stuff with the codeine in it, the good stuff? I said, nope, I'm good. Never took the drugs. Still wasn't allowed to drive, but I walked to high school, went to the basketball game, had a lovely evening. It was fine. I never got the girl. That's not the point. The point is, over the course of Monday through Friday, mentally psyched myself up so much to go to that game just to possibly hang out and flirt with Jill Dasher that I just never had any pain. None. There wasn't, some dryness, but 4 teeth cut out, 0 pain. My brain completely blocked it. So it's kind of interesting, the power of what our minds can do.
That is awesome. I mean, I love hearing those stories because it really does.
So,
I'm probably not going to be using that
nothing
technique.
You've got going for you. It's going to be awful. But, if you were in high school and there's a girl out of your league you really liked, tomorrow wouldn't be so bad.
Sometimes it seemed to me, too, that things were different when I was in high school.
How so?
I was able to take a little bit more pain than I am now.
Oh.
I was able to, and you heal like overnight. You literally, when you're in high school, you just heal so fast. But I still generally do, and I am pretty hyped up about it because I've been in pain. The pain is not severe, but now that I've seen what's causing the pain, maybe it won't be nearly as bad as I'm making it out to be. Let's hope.
It's going to be good moving forward.
It will be. Yeah.
Well, let's have fun today tomorrow will be.
That was my thing, is that doing this really is going to help take my mind off things. It's really going to help a lot.
So I will, that was the last tooth related story of the show. For all of you dentists,
that's enough.
And dental hygienists that tuned in today, your part's over.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for that story. I appreciate that. The dentists. That's mostly my audience. Dentists and oral surgeons. That's a big one.
So a lot of people out there are probably wondering how we so closely coordinated the outfits for today's show. The going with the red. This was complete happenstance. It just worked out.
Don't you always wear red the day before Friday the 13th?
I might. I have a lot of red shirts. It's a color I like, which I have been told by mostly women who would never consider dating me anyway, but know a thing or two about fashion, that I have the exact wrong skin tone for wearing red, that I should never wear red. Blue is good for me. Browns are good for me, but red is the fashion equivalent of a war crime when it comes to my skin complexion. And yet I grew up a Cincinnati Reds fan.
Oh, okay. Well,
I loved the Big Red Machine in the 70s. In 1971, I was 4 years old. The Reds lost to the Oakland A's. I cried. It was my first sports-related tears. And so I've just always loved red. And the Cincinnati Reds, I have lots of red hats. And doesn't matter what my skin tone is like.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't make any difference. I like red too. Yeah, it's a great color.
You've got better skin tone. I think that's the point of today's episode.
It's the filtering. I've got a lot of filtering going on. And in true confession, I realized when I looked at last week's podcast that the red looks better in the lights that I'm currently using, the extremely inexpensive lighting. So somehow the red, because darker colors you get washed. So that's part of why I wore red.
Yeah, the light. It may just have a better Kelvin temperature for what you're doing.
Yeah.
The light
Yeah, I
that I
think
have
so.
here is not great. Part of it. Oh, I see here. Okay. Everyone who's just listening to the podcast and not necessarily paying attention, check that something great is about to happen look at that. I just improved the
Ooh.
quality. And all I did was on my other monitor, I have
Mm-hmm.
Photoshop up with the full screen is black. And so I was getting that whitewash from the Zoom app. So the Zoom
Right.
app was over here, and I just noticed that. And so then I went to the Photoshop and magically
It's
fixed.
It's amazing what a little difference, what little
Yeah.
difference will make. A little difference. I'm part of a group on Facebook called Crew Stories, and it's just what it sounds like. It's the
Okay.
stories of crews on movies, and
Oh,
there is a lot. They post pictures of stuff they've worked on, or sometimes not what they worked on, but other crews that they've worked with,
sure.
and they're just amazing because there was just a bunch of pictures from Lonesome Dove, the series, and so it showed a
Oh,
bunch of their setups, and
brilliant
it's
series.
yeah, I
Well,
really love that series.
true to form, though I'm not in the movie industry, I do have a cruise story. Would you like to hear about the time I was nearly killed by a roadie from Pink Floyd?
Oh, of course.
So I am on the local load-in crew for Pink Floyd's stadium show in Ames, Iowa at Jack Trice Stadium. And this was in my youth. I don't know. I was maybe 26, 27. Everything's going great. At that point in my life, I didn't have a fear of heights. The first thing we did, we're getting the stage ready, and the stages for those that have never set up a stadium show, they have all the trestles and the stuff that holds all the speakers and all that, and then above it, they put a dark mesh that is just sort of a ceiling to it. You don't really notice it in the audience. It's 53 feet, in this case, 53 feet, 9 inches above the stage, this dark mesh. And the thing about the dark mesh is that they tie it off on the corners, but then there's all these little hand ties that you need to do across the whole thing. And they needed somebody who wasn't afraid of heights. And I wasn't. And so I crawled up there and I'm just walking across the top of the thing. I have extraordinary balance. The thought of it now makes me queasy, but I had no problem. I tied off the whole thing. Some of the actual Pink Floyd crew gave me props. And so I got it done really quickly. And I'm down now on the stage and I'm helping. I've got this huge bar and it's got a ratchet and I'm ratcheting down one of the cables that is tied to the balloons that explode out during the show and the giant characters. And so I'm winching one of those down. And so I'm bent over, sort of like 90 degrees, putting all my weight on this. And all of a sudden, bam, I am flat on the stage. It's my wind's been knocked out. No idea what happened. One of the actual roadies from 53 feet, 9 inches above me had a wrench that was this big and he had forgotten to clip it to his belt. So when it slipped out of his hands, this wrench plummeted to the ground and hit me, just missed my spine. And it was like somebody had taken a sledgehammer and dropped me. They said if it had hit my spine, I would have been completely paralyzed. Hit me in the head, it would have killed me instantly. As it was, they paid me for the rest of the day and gave me free tickets to the show. So
Oh man.
I was not killed by Pink Floyd's Road Crew. It was a great show.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little bit of a bruise, but the real value was I got a story out of the deal.
Definitely, man, that's quite a story, and you're extremely lucky. Extremely lucky. That's amazing.
It wasn't my time.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I believe that too. I've always been one of those people that when everyone says, "Well, he went before his time," I think, well, but he went. So isn't
know.
that his time?
Where do you pick up the schedule on that? Is that
Yeah,
a website?
Exactly. Probably. Well, today
he
they
died
probably do.
last Tuesday. Ironically, he was supposed to die on Thursday.
Right.
He got
Right.
shorted
How is
2
that?
days.
Doesn't seem possible to me, but that's I'm sure that
It's always before our time.
Yeah.
The when you hear an actor dies, he died at 80. Oh, I would have liked him to live to 82 and done another movie. Or,
Right.
I mean, like Helen
Alec?
Mirren. I hope
Mhm.
Helen Mirren has another 100 years in her.
Yeah.
Because I will watch every movie she does.
Mhm.
One of our species' great treasures. Helen Mirren is fantastic. And I don't know what you like to read as far as nonfiction, but are you familiar with Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler's work, Rise of Superman, The Future is Faster Than You Think? They're sort of futurists. I don't know if you've
Oh,
heard
I've
of
not.
them.
I've heard of those books. I'm
Okay.
familiar with them. I haven't read them yet.
Well, they're absolutely brilliant.
Mhm.
They're both futurists, and their newest book, The Future is Faster Than You Think, talks a lot about the advances in technology as it relates to longevity. There are literally dozens of companies all doing their own thing, but they're working towards the same goal of curing death, because there is good reason to believe that our life expectancy as it is can be vastly improved. According to one of their earlier books, the human life expectancy, meaning your life expectancy, my life expectancy, is increasing every day by 4 hours. Meaning that if you knew when your time could go was 6 days ago, that schedule's been updated and it's 1 day later. Well, in this newest book, they talk about the tipping point, and not necessarily for the masses, because their books are about technology and the speed of change in technology, the speed in going from first gen, horribly expensive to incredibly inexpensive. You mentioned the phones. These are vastly more powerful than the ones that put men on the moon, and less expensive. And so initially, this technology won't be available to everyone, but over time, it will get cheaper. The point being, they say the tipping point where we will get to 24 hours, meaning you use a day and your life expectancy increases by a day. So for all intents and purposes, immortality in 12 years. That's how far away they think the tipping point is for a small percentage of the population that will be able to afford the things that one needs to take advantage of that. But I plan to live to 350.
This is really fascinating to me, and I'm not sure if I want to live to 350 or not. It kind of, I might want it. Not that.
Well, you're imagining a 349-year-old being somebody that is in an episode of Tales of the Crypt. I'm talking about when I hit 300. Wow, he looks like a man of 65.
Yeah. Okay.
So it is about cell regeneration, telomeres in our cells, making them longer. And this is all science that is way over my head, but I like their books and I devour them. And so there's nothing better than a podcast with an author who comes on and just sells the heck out of other people's books.
That's true. I'm sure the other authors love it.
If you read one book this year, don't read one of mine. Go check out Peter Diamandis. I mean, these guys are truly staggering giants in the industry as far as their writing. And I had this wonderful experience late last year. I don't remember the exact month, but I'm a huge fan.
Mm-hmm.
I every one of their books that comes out, I get it on Audible. I consume it multiple times. Well, my book, since I am on this podcast, I should mention it, Mastering Amazon Descriptions, which is the one about writing descriptions that are designed to better sell your books, because on the Amazon page, we have that little spot where we talk about the book, and nearly every author does it wrong, or every publisher, whether it's traditionally published, indie, they do a summary of the book and it's not that interesting. It's not great copywriting. I have worked for 3 years in developing a methodology of copywriting that gets readers to want to read the book vastly more often than the norm. And so that is what I do. I write a lot of descriptions for authors. It's how I make my living now, more even than the fiction, because I'm a former data analyst for Geico, where a 15-minute call could save you 15% on your auto insurance. and so
what's that? I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, I was in the marketing department, and our mantra was, try to keep that on the down low. We don't want that getting out. Pay no attention to the hundreds of millions of dollars we're spending on ads. We don't want it to get out that a 15-minute call could save you 15% on your auto insurance. And so I built up some expertise in this one area. Well, two, the Amazon ads, but now the descriptions. And this is why I speak at these conferences and so forth. And a guy reaches out to me, and it turns out he's the personal assistant for Steven Kotler, my hero. And I got to have a 90-minute Zoom call with my hero at his request.
Awesome.
It was awesome. We hit it off immediately. And the beautiful thing was he wanted to know about the copywriting. And so I was telling him the theory, what I had studied. I have lots of data and how I'd moved from 1 in 30 conversion rate, meaning 30 readers need to see your page before one of them decides they want to read the book, down to 1 in 12. And then how I moved to 1 in 8 to 1 in 10. We talked about the process. And so I'm telling him about the data and the background, and his knowledge base is such that with each thing he said, that makes complete sense, because in the hippocampus, and so then he starts using words that are not in my vocabulary, but he knew I could explain the math of why it worked, and he knew the brain side of why it worked. So we had this amazing conversation, and it's just pretty cool to get to meet one of your heroes. And I told him about midway through that the fact that I wasn't screaming like a teenager at a Beatles concert was a sign of great restraint on my part.
It was all you could do to do that.
It was all I could do, exactly.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because I just went to this influencer summit where I was just trying to get ideas for moving my podcast forward. I have no desire to be an influencer, but apparently anyone in this world who wants to move something like a podcast or a blog or, a page they have on Facebook, they have to be that's something they have to kind of look into, is what these people do. And one of the main people they talked to, who very successful, was a copywriter. And, it was the same thing. He really talked about how important it was to get your message out in a way that people are interested in reading. And,
that is 100% true.
Yeah.
And that's something that very few authors, and like I said, with the exception of the description for Battlefield Earth, L. Ron Hubbard, that's a traditionally published book, and I rewrote the description. They immediately saw an improvement in conversion rate. Now, this book has been out for 37 years, something like that. So it's not marketed anymore. It's
right. One of the worst movies of all time.
One of the worst movies of all time. But the book is considered a science fiction classic.
Yeah.
And so if people go check out Battlefield Earth, the old description obviously not there. And admittedly, they put a bunch of stuff at the bottom because they just couldn't help themselves. But I made it sell more books. It gets a lot of organic traffic, and they sell more now than they did. And maybe they were selling 1 a day, and now they're selling 3 a day. But they're not changing anything different about it, and it's just a better stream of revenue. The concept here, and this is where anybody listening, like you said, whether you want to be an influencer or you just want to have a podcast about guinea pigs, it's nicer to have people interested than not. And so as you're telling your friends, well, I've just decided to start a podcast and I'm going to talk about guinea pigs, and my guinea pig Ferrari, and we're going to maybe do tricks. Well, the way we reach our circle of influence, which is in the case of Facebook, the people we're connected to, is we put a post. It's a simple thing. But I want people to think about the way they use Facebook. If you're on and you see your best friend from high school has just put up a post and it's a single paragraph of 15 lines without any breaks, just a giant block of text. Well, he was your best friend. He gets a like or a love because that's the deal. He does not get your time to actually read the post because 15 lines is war and peace in the world of social media. Our attention spans are so horribly fractured. We scroll and like and love and scroll and move, and we're just looking for that. Is it dopamine hit? That's
it. It's dopamine. I even slowed down on liking and loving things just because of after watching the Social Dilemma on Netflix.
I haven't watched that yet. People recommend it, but
it's interesting. It's about how AI uses everything you do on social media to sell you stuff, but it's a whole nother subject. But
because naturally this is the point in the show where I'd like to transition to table tennis. I've got a story. About 2 weeks ago, I'm talking to my best friend on the phone. She and I, we talk all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We don't chat that much on Facebook. We occasionally, but mostly if something cool happened in her life, she calls me or I call her. And so we're talking, and this is a woman I've been friends with for 34, almost 35 years. We've known each other a long time. And we both like to compete. We both enjoy epic trash talking. And for several years, we've been talking about playing table tennis. And she called me because the rec center, not far from, both of us, she lives about 15, 20 miles from me, but there's one that's sort of in the middle, is now open again. It had been closed for a while because of COVID-19, but the ping pong tables are available.
All right.
And so she called. And in fact, on Saturday, we are going to Pong. I have two paddles. They're both, we're talking, this is a quality table tennis bat here. It's about $250 worth of table tennis paddles here. So when I say we're serious about this game, I am not kidding. And I've got then my backup paddle that she will use. And she's already called me on that and said that, we're playing 2 games because we're going to switch the paddles in between games. So she gets to use the best paddle once and I get to use it once. But the point is, all this is going on over our iPhones. This is not on social media. An hour later, I got a table tennis paddle ad on Facebook.
Yep.
Now, I am on Facebook all the time, and I know how the tracking pixels work.
Mm-hmm.
I've used tracking pixels. I've tracked other people. But
so you really know
the
how
phone.
they work.
This was the
Same
phone.
Same thing.
It just is staggering.
You are basically somewhere along the line.
But this isn't text.
You gave
is voice on the phone.
This is voice. I noticed.
This was voice. This was not text. I understand text, that when you're texting, they read everything. But this was me talking.
This is what Siri is really about.
This
is literally, Siri and what's the Amazon one? I don't know. Their marketing is terrible.
Okay,
So she is always listening.
She is.
See?
She is always listening.
See?
See, the thing is, you can turn it off.
What would you like me to buy?
You can turn Siri off so she's not always listening, but every time they do an update, they flip her back on.
They flip her back on automatically. And I've heard, I don't know if this is true because I don't work for Apple, but I've heard from, documentaries and AI people that turning her off means she won't bother you.
Oh,
it means when you say, hey,
so
Siri,
evil.
she won't answer. It doesn't mean she's
so
literally
evil.
off. It
Oh, that
is.
is so evil.
It's scary stuff. It's marketing has gone to a level we never imagined, and that's the real. I don't know if you've ever read *Sapiens*. Have you ever read that book?
No, I've heard the
Okay.
title, but I don't know anything about it.
Another author that's very much he really talks about the human race, and he has several books about how we as humans operate. So how we operate as a society, as tribes,
Sure.
different things that happen like that. And so he actually talks a lot about artificial intelligence and the kind of dangers there. I mean, there's a lot of good things about artificial intelligence. I mean, they're helping people with surgery and things, but
sure.
there are some, there are some real dangers of the amount of control it can have over people without you having any idea, which is what we're seeing with what you just talked about.
Yeah.
It's like it literally is.
Fortunately, though, I love table tennis, so I don't mind.
So you don't mind that,
but you're right.
But it goes a little further than that.
They're listening all the time, and that's a little disturbing. I would imagine we can turn our phones off and put them in another room. I mean, it's never been done before.
Right.
I'm not sure how you do it.
It's right, because we, as you probably know, we are very addicted to our devices. So of course we can turn our phones off, but actually doing it, like I've just tried to cut down to an hour a day, and I put an alarm on my phone when I'm done with that hour. And especially now that I've, it was the election that did it.
Sure.
An event happens, and suddenly that hour is going off, in the first 2 hours of the day.
Well,
so it's interesting how, if you actually track what you're doing, it's like, oh my God, I picked this up so much.
My idea of cutting down is I had been living on the Las Vegas Strip prior to the zombie apocalypse. And when I moved back, I brought my computer, but only 2 of the 5 monitors. So instead of having 5 monitors, I have 2. That's my idea of cutting back. Am I still plugged in 14 hours a day? Yes. But I'm plugged in only on 2 monitors, not 5. I missed the other 3.
I'm not sure if that's really cutting back.
That's not really the definition of cutting back. It is the loosest definition possible.
Cutting back. As someone who does audio, video, to some extent, and sometimes, well, actually I do artwork too, because I do my own artwork for the show. So I understand 5 monitors now. I used to wonder, I'm also a flight sim enthusiast. So
nice.
I definitely get having a lot of monitors. I used to always think, why do people, I get it. I totally understand.
Well, for me, because I do so much with authors.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's 5 years now, 4 or 5, they all run together. I think it was 2015, late 2015, when I quit my day job and went full-time as an author. I was making about 10 times what I made at my it wasn't a horrible day job. It was a low-paying day job. And on one particular day, I had a part-time virtual assistant who worked a few hours a week for me, but I had some things that needed to get done that day. And so I hired her, and she worked an 8-hour day. I was paying her $20 an hour. Towards the end of the day at my rental job, Big Ten Rentals in Iowa City, which the owner's a friend. It's a great rental store. Loved it. But I got to the end of the day and realized I'd put in an 8-hour day at $13 an hour, paid somebody else $20 an hour to do the work I would have been doing had I not been at my job. I'm the son of a mathematician, and that was not a horribly difficult thing to suss out.
Figure out.
So that's when I put in my notice, and I became a full-time author. For a number of years, I focused on fiction. Then I switched over to nonfiction when I started teaching authors about using advertising to drive your sales. I am an extremely average author. I put out books that are pretty good. I have friends who put out books that are great. The point being, my fiction, all of my books, I think, are between 4.0, 4.1, and 4.3, 4.4 as far as the fiction, the reviews on Amazon. My nonfiction are typically 4.6, but they're not, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8 fiction, and they don't need to be. My best year was $107,000. I drove those sales through using Amazon ads. And I did it at a time that very few people were having success with Amazon ads, which led to me starting the group and teaching people about that. And that's when I found my passion was more working with authors. Now, my books now barely sell at all because I just don't spend the time I needed to, or I need to do that work. Instead, I spend the time on the copywriting. And I kind of want to bring it back to that because I was using that example on Facebook and we talked about the giant block of text doesn't work. That being said, what does work is hooks. And a hook is simple. Everybody listening knows what a hook is because you've been hooked. You've been on CNN. You scroll down to the bottom and you've seen where it says, "You won't believe what Ally McBeal looks like today." And you sigh, "Oh, I know that if I click, I'm going to have to go through 40 pages of old photos before I get to the today photo. And she probably won't look any different. And I will believe it. But I'm gotta know." And so you click, and that is a hook. In the book business, most people know the term above the fold. That comes from print publishing newspapers. You have a folded newspaper, and the part that is above the fold is what most people see. So you want your biggest story there. On Amazon, the above the fold is the read more line. You have just an instant to get their attention enough that they don't click away, because the person, ironically, who is shopping for a book, which they are going to take into a corner away from the kids, away from the dog. They're going to sit quietly for several hours uninterrupted and enjoy, is not in the reading mind space. They're in the social media mind space. So while they're there trying to pick out their next book, they're doing it the same way they do on social media. Like, love, move on, scroll, click on a book cover that looks cool, spend a tenth of a second looking at the description page, not even clicking read more, and getting distracted and going to something else. So we need to get them to stop. They need to stop and take 15, 20 seconds to read your description. And the first step is we need to get them to click read more. And so the opening hook is the key element. And I tell people, well, here's an opening hook from my book, Henry Wood Detective Agency. It's 13 words. It also includes an improperly used ellipse. Henry knew one thing, ... Blank line, line 2. Dames were trouble, period. Blank line, third line. Would this client be the exception? Question mark. It's only 13 words. It's barely there, but the first line, Henry knew one thing, ... That is so short that if you look in the middle of the line, your brain processes those 4 words and those 3 little dots as one. It's instantaneous. And nobody is going to click away at the ... We're way too curious a species. And so we go to the next line. Dames were trouble. Well, dames. Okay, there's a lot of information in that. Nobody has used that word in 50 years. The cover's Art Deco. So it sets the stage for the time period of the book. Well, again, dames were trouble. Well, what's that about? They're going to go to the next line. Would this client be the exception? Question mark. Again, it's really hard to not click read more after a question mark. And so they do, and they go on and they read the rest of the description, and it converts at 1 in 8. Typically, most descriptions, or even the Henry Wood description, converted at 1 in 30 to 1 in 35 on my original description. And if people are curious, they can go to the print version of Henry Wood Detective Agency and read it, because the original horrible description is still there, because I do a lot of podcasts and I tell that story, and I like people to be able to see what an abomination it was.
Mm-hmm.
But all this comes back to what you're doing. You need a description on YouTube. Anything that you're involved in with words, you can use a hook. And I do that on Facebook with everything. I had a post the other day, and it started out, it's been 3 days, ... Blank line, next line, ... I now use back-to-back ellipses, which will kill punctuation Nazis. Grammar Nazis are more common, but there are some punctuation Nazis out there, and that will absolutely
I've got one or
an
two of
end.
those on my page, and I try to ignore them, but sometimes I just play with them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but the point is, I don't care about the rules. I care about successfully getting people to read my stuff. And so this was the post. It's been 3 days, ... Next line, or blank line, next line, ... I think the clothes in the dryer have learned their lesson, period. And then I forget what came after that, but then I wrote, because I like using Facebook to practice writing humor. I literally usually get 100 or so likes and loves and 30 to 60 comments with my Facebook post because I use proper copywriting. People know that if I put something on Facebook, it's probably going to be funny. There are people, Facebook friends, and admittedly, I'm at like 4,800 my friends list. Most of them are authors. A lot of them are in my groups as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they know that I don't ever post political stuff. There's almost always a laugh or two in my posts. And sometimes I will write things that are 1,000 words on a Facebook post. And I get just as many likes and loves because I am drawing the reader in. There's a cadence to it. I never have paragraphs more than 3 lines. I use hooks to connect them up. I use open loops. You'll never believe what happened. But before I tell you that story, let me tell you about the wooden spoon I bought. I got a wooden spoon about a week ago, and it's really working out well for me. And so I'm constantly practicing the art of copywriting in everything I do. If any interaction, I don't know if you noticed this, but our interactions on Facebook chat before we started this, I use blank lines. Everything is small. It's digestible. And because of that, I've become really good at copywriting. And so my point being to anyone listening, if you do anything, if you've got a YouTube channel, if you have dreams of making your Etsy store popular, if you try to think like a copywriter and have hooks and just make your friends and family engage with the content you put up that has no ulterior motive, there's nothing you're selling, it's just the fun. You need to share that chef salad you had at lunch. Share it with a little bit of writing that is long enough that they have to click, to see more, and that will make you a good copywriter.
I think I see a lot of people on, not a lot, a few people on my Facebook feed that do this naturally. It's just kind of a natural ability they have. And I've also seen other people like yourself who have done this very purposefully. And it totally makes sense to me. It makes a lot of sense. It's kind of why I have 2 pages. I have a personal page and I have a professional page. That's air quotes for people not watching the video. And that's really somewhere in my mind. That's what I knew that's what it was for. Do you have more than one Facebook page, or you just have page and groups?
I have more than I keep track of. So I obviously have me, just my personal account.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 Facebook groups: Mastering Amazon Ads, Mastering Amazon Descriptions. I have a page for Mastering Amazon Ads. I have, I think, 4 pages or 3 pages for 3 of my books, and then a group for, I think, the mystery series. But admittedly, all the things other than the 2 that are for authors, I don't do much. And if you're not active in them, they just kind of sit there. But I have those 2. And then I also have Mastering Weight Loss for Authors, because I have, over the last 3 years, twice gone from 215, 216 down to 192. I did that in Las Vegas when I was living on the Strip, and I have a Fitbit, and I would walk every day, 20,000 steps. I changed my diet to keto. I found that eating healthy food is easy if you live on the Las Vegas Strip, because you can go out to dinner and get something that is absolutely good for you and delicious. It's expensive, but if you've got the money and you decide you want to spend money on your health, living on the Las Vegas Strip is great for that. And so twice I did this. And authors, one of the things we suffer from is we spend a lot of our time in our desk chair and we're not motivated to get up and move around. Well, it's a little group, couple hundred people. But then the zombie apocalypse hit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not inexpensive to live on the Strip. I loved it. It was worth every penny. But when all the casinos and restaurants shut down, it's not worth $2,300 a month to live on a closed down Strip, especially if you happen to have a house that's paid for. So I have a house in Iowa.
So that was waiting for you.
It was waiting for me. It was closed up. It's fine. It's a little bit of chaos because when I moved back, I just kind of threw stuff everywhere. But it's been a double-edged sword. On one end, I'm saving so much money a month that after 5 months, I bought a used truck. I've always wanted a full-size truck, and I have a lovely Ford F-150 2005 that I've named Katerina. She's red. She's delightful.
More red. All right.
More red. Exactly. I love her so much. The downside, though, is I went from 192 back up to 216.8. And it's because when you live in a town of 252 people in rural Iowa, hard as it may be to believe, there are fewer interesting things to see on a walk compared to Las Vegas.
See, this is interesting because my wife and I moved. I'm in Eugene, Oregon. We moved here from L.A.
Oh.
It's been quite a few years now, but moving here, it's a town of 107, about 180,000 now. So
with a college,
college, so it does have some culture. It actually has a opera house where they have a lot of used to have a lot of interesting events. Seinfeld would stop by here on his tours, things like that.
I happen to be a fan of opera.
Cool.
I love Enrico Caruso is my favorite tenor. He's a genius. He's dead, but
they rarely have opera there, but they do. They have ballet and they do have opera and they have a lot, Broadway shows. But anyway, The difference from LA to here was I thought this was, nothing was going on here. So it's hard to imagine a town.
180,000 is still more than 252.
It's a lot more than 252
when I live here.
So you must know everyone. You must know everyone in town.
In fact,
yeah.
I'm in the house that was my grandfather's house in town. About 7 years ago. Well, I have no idea. A long, long time ago, I decided to move back to Iowa. Maybe been 10 or 12 years. I have no concept of time anymore. I'm going to live to 350. I don't need to pay.
Oh, yeah. So you don't need to count the days.
And we have a farm outside of town. We still have the original 40 acres that was homesteaded 150 or 60 years ago. When my grandfather was alive, the farm was a bit bigger. When he retired from farming at 70, they moved into town. Now, we've been in Jones County as a family, the Meeks family, farming here for, like I say, a century and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a small town. It's always been a small town. Well, it's interesting. My grandfather, who passed away at 96, now, it was not before his time, because when a male was born in Jones County, the year he was born, the life expectancy was 57. So 57 was his time. He made it to 96. And for those who are familiar with gambling, he covered the over.
He covered big time.
Big time.
And so the interesting thing about those stats, is that when he was born, a whole lot of people were dying in farm accidents, factory accidents,
polio.
Polio. You get a tooth like this, You're probably
dead.
going to die. Yeah, you're probably going to die. It's an
Tomorrow,
it's an impacted
you probably
tooth,
got at least a
right?
30% chance of living through it.
At least,
At
right?
least.
Oh, by the way, if I don't come back on the podcast, it's really been great
Last
having you as an
episode.
audience. There was always a chance.
I'll speak of you fondly. Oh, I remember. Well, I was on his last show.
That'll be nice. I really appreciate
I predicted
that.
his demise.
I appreciate that. Well, it's interesting because when you're talking about living to 350, there are probably treatments now, and I know there will be very soon, where they could just inject stem cells into the tooth and repair it. And, that's the kind of thing I think you're referring to is these type of treatments, not even getting into the nanobots that they're talking about putting in your body to repair cells and get rid of things like cancer and really all the different aging things.
And there's, he's no longer there, but there was a men's room attendant who worked at the Tilted Kilt on the Link in Las Vegas, which is a side street, walking street. And at the Tilted Kilt, they had a men's room attendant. He was this young Latino man, well, young compared to me. He's probably in his 30s, but he was missing his arm from about here down. And he had a robot arm. Now, he was a men's room attendant. That's not a high-paying gig. So he didn't buy his robot arm. He was a beta tester for a robot arm making company.
Oh, wow.
So he would test a robot arm for 3 months, and then he would get their newest, latest, upgraded, high-tech robot arm. And so it normally would cost $15,000, $20,000, but because he was a tester and all he did was report periodically what worked and what didn't, he got this cool robot arm. Well, it has a power pack. He can pick things up, and if he's not using his robot arm, he can shut off the power. The thing that was amazing to me about it, two things. One is that in the fingertips, there were sensor pads. He could feel texture.
Wow.
So he could, if he had his eyes closed and rubbed it across marble, he could tell that. Silk, sandpaper, he could tell textures just like he could with his other hand. The other thing, and I wish I knew the name of the company that made his robot arm because I would love to give them a plug, but I have no idea. Someone at that company was when they were sitting around designing the robot arm, somebody said, you know what? I also have a minor in art. We could make it look really freaking cool, because when you met Victor and you saw his robot arm and you walked out of there and you looked at your own, you're like, God, boy, an upgrade wouldn't be that bad.
It would.
So this year in 2020, despite all the bad things, there's a company that has 3D printed a 1/4 scale human heart, fully functioning human heart from a single person's biomass. They are within 3 to 5 years of being able to print a full-size heart from a single person's biomass. So if you have heart disease and you need a new part, and I don't know the process, I don't know how long it takes them to collect the biomass, what's involved, but in 3 to 5 years, they'll just make you a new one.
Mm-hmm.
It's estimated that within a fully functioning, this was 3 or 4 years ago, a fully functioning, viable human kidney was 3D printed. There in the book that I keep plugging instead of my own, The Future is Faster Than You Think, Diamandis and Kotler, they talk about a human spine has been 3D printed. And so in addition to the things that you're talking about, it's the replacement parts that are going to be available. Yeah. There's a company out in California, I think there's several studying this, but of all the things we know about the human body, we know the least about human blood. And there's a company out there, again, don't know their name, but if you were to look at the blood cell of a 25-year-old under a microscope, and let's say it looked like this, and then you were to look at my blood, a 53-year-old, it would be tiny. It would look like this. It would be small.
Oh, interesting.
But what they have found is that if you go to this institute who's doing research, it's expensive. I think $8,000, and you have to agree to come back 3 times over the next 120 days. But they give you a transfusion. They pump out your blood and they pump in a new batch of blood, and all of it is the blood of children, which I love. All of the donors are 18 to 25, so they're all like college kids or what have you.
Now, it's a research company. It's not a vampire covenant.
It's both. It is actually both, as far as we know. It could be a vampire covenant.
Sounds very much like it's a vampire covenant.
I mean, I don't think that's their tagline.
Maybe you can help them with that.
We give you the blood of children, but I'm not really a fan of children, so it's my tagline. I love that about them. Yeah. And so the point being is, when you do this, if I were to get the blood of an 18-year-old today, in 120 days, all of that person's blood cells are gone. I've used them up. We replenish in its entirety our blood system every 120 days. So I'm having blood cells die today, and I'm making new ones. And so none of the original blood cells would be in there. But when you come back at 120 days, and they've been checking at these points along the way, the blood cells that your body is making are now the 18-year-old blood cells.
Oh,
is it possible that I'm wearing a hat, and those people that are clever will know that it's probably because I'm balding, and I am. But what if my blood cells were better? What if, could my beard go back to red? It's white now. I don't know. And they don't know. They're researching it. A lot of this is from, again, I love Kotler and Diamandis, and they're a big deal. I'm quoting their books. This is stuff they figured out. I can't remember the names of the companies, but go buy Kotler and Diamandis books because they're amazing. And so the amount of things, well, here's another thing that's from their latest book. I take every day. This is the author promoting Kotler and Diamandis show. Niacinamide. And they talk about this in their book. And apparently,
what is that?
Niacinamide, yeah.
Niacinamide.
B3.
Niacinamide. So
B3, yep.
B3,
and
okay. Thank you.
Apparently, our cells, when we get 50 and beyond, cells die. And when we're younger, they get flushed out of our system. As we get older, some of the cells die, but they don't get flushed out. They're called zombie cells. And that's not me just loving the word zombie. That's sort of the common vernacular for them, these zombie cells in our system. And what they do is they plug up traffic. So as our body is trying to figure things out, and it's saying, you know what? He's got bags below his eyes. We should probably get some more collagen in there. You know what? That message isn't making it to the collagen plant in my body, and hence I have bags. It's probably because I've got zombie cells. So I'm taking 1 niacinamide a day. And this is 500 milligrams, half a gram of niacinamide a day. It's all part of my plan to live to 350.
That sounds like a very realistic possibility. I mean, with that what you're talking about there, if you can, because that's what I wondered about. How are you not going to look like the crypt keeper? But you just answered it. That's how. If you can be infused with younger people's blood, and then your blood cells start copying that blood, I think that's what that's
exactly it.
And podcasts are a lot about people talking about things they don't know about. So I appreciate that. I have found some of my favorite podcasts.
Brian Meeks, well-known guru of talking about things he has no idea about.
Oh, that's a good one.
Known for
I'm going to write that down for my copy.
Known for having no idea really what he's talking about, but he tells a good story. He uses proper copywriting, and it's believable.
Things we know nothing about. Things.
I have been trying to cite my sources, though, as best I can on the fly without, if I had the actual,
I do the same thing. Copy, yeah.
I would look up the source, but I have the Audible book, and it's not as easy to cite references in an audiobook.
And I wish I could remember the author of Sapiens, because I think you would like his other books as well. He's now come up with several other books about. He's also a futurist, and he talks. It's more about the social beings that humans are, and how that works and doesn't work, and things like that. And he's a very interesting guy to watch on a podcast as well.
Now, I'm not psychic. I'm this is a guess. I don't know where this name popped into my head, but could it be Yuval Noah Harari?
No, that's it. That's
I just made that up.
That's him.
And that was just a guess.
Yeah.
It was either that or Mr. Smith.
I think it's
and
a good guess.
Yuval Noah Harari. Pay no attention to the now bright glow from Amazon. Am I right?
But we're both mispronouncing it a little bit, but that's close.
I am sure.
That's really close.
Sapiens.
He's a very interesting person.
Let's just take a look at this because you know what? I'm clicking on it and I am buying it. I am buying it based on your recommendation right now. We can't continue with the podcast till I get this clicked.
Oh, I like it. I had it on my shelf or in the piles that exist in my house for months. And then I had a problem with my eyes and my brain, and I couldn't read anymore. It's partly why I started a podcast, a long story. But I started listening to things. So I ended up listening to the audiobook instead of reading it, and didn't realize when I first got it, it starts a million years ago. It starts when sapiens started on Earth. So it starts way back when, and it tries to hypothesize about why sapiens did better than Neanderthals and what our social interactions and our stories, how important stories were for humans after, I think it's 150. If you get a larger group of people, you need more stories. And then it goes all the way to the present, and how that, kind of why we have all the myths and stories that we have, and how much, and even talks about the story of money, and the story of countries, and the story, how these are all things that we've created in order to, kind of live with this many people on a planet. It's very interesting. It's an interesting book.
This I'm looking forward to it because I love this subject matter, and it's a great title. Yeah, I literally, I need to make another book recommendation though. I think it's the best book I've ever listened to. This is a book. I was listening to a podcast because a friend sent it to me, the same friend that I'm going to crush in table tennis. And she sent me this podcast interview with Matthew McConaughey. And he just released a book called Green Lights.
Mm-hmm.
It's 8 hours or so long. He is the narrator. And he's got that sweet Matthew McConaughey voice.
Right.
That sweet cadence. It's just everything about it is all right.
Yeah.
It's so good.
He did about 20 podcasts for that book, which is.
Oh, have you listened to the book then? Green Lights.
I've not listened to the book. I've started some of the podcasts, but on your recommendation, I'm going to get it. I'm going to check that out. It
is either the best or second best book I have ever read in my life. The first one might be A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth, which is 1,482 pages of very small type with almost no peaks and valleys about a girl in 1951 India. That is the finest piece of writing I can even imagine. I got done with all 1,482 pages that represents 1 year in her life. And I literally thought to myself, that's the best short story I've ever read. It was staggeringly good. If people like literature, A Suitable Boy is a tour de force. That being said, Green Lights is now my second favorite book of all time. And I read a lot. I love books, but it's his whole, it is going to make me a better person. Just listening to how he has thought about life, how he has gone through it, dealing with fame, his brutal honesty about when he was not doing what he should be doing, the way his parents raised him, his lessons in life, and being aware of when life is giving you a green light, a yellow light, a red light. It's fantastic. So if nothing else, folks I don't care if I promote my books or not. I do fine, but I just am so passionate about the written word. Well, written or spoken, either one is fantastic.
And you are promoting your book by coming on this amazing podcast because Brian Meeks will be the name on the podcast. So, and
There you go.
we will have
People,
links to all of your books.
well, anybody that is thinking about being an author,
Mhm.
I've been on lots of podcasts. I like talking about that. It is a scary proposition at first. The first book is the hardest book you'll ever write. It's also the worst book you'll ever write. It may be a good book, but the nature of the business is that we get better. We continue to improve with each one. My fifth book is better than my third book. My 12th book was better than my 10th book. I am better at the craft today than I was a year ago. We just keep improving. And if you understand that going in, and don't let, my friend Craig Martell always says, several people say it. Point is, don't let perfection be the enemy of pretty good. And that's how you get through in this business, which is very competitive. There are authors out there putting out a dozen books a year. They write one every month. Last year, I wrote 5 novels in 5 months.
Wow.
I've done it at that pace. It is something just like any other thing in our life. If we do it every day, and it's the priority. When you wake up, the first thing you're going to do is write, and you're not interested in anything else. Well, obviously, the first thing you're going to do is make coffee. After you make the coffee,
okay, let's be real. Thank you, thank you.
Let's have a moment of honesty there. People immediately like, "Well, gosh, I've been here for 70 minutes, and now I know he's a liar."
No,
the first thing you do is not write; it's the coffee. But once you've got the coffee and you're going, it's a couple thousand words a day. A novel is 40 to 50,000 words. A novel can be 100,000. But if you're writing 2,000 words a day, that's 60,000 in a month. And the first few days might be hard. But when you're in the moment and you're thinking about the characters and you're thinking about them every day, they become so familiar and comfortable that it just gets easier and easier. And the fifth book that I wrote in that 5 months was the easiest of the bunch. So it is a wonderful way to make a living. It's incredibly satisfying when you get a review from somebody who didn't give birth to you. That's a big moment. And
I like that description. It's a big moment.
I was worried there. I thought my little voice in my head was, "Oh, that last joke didn't land."
No,
he's so stoic.
It did take me a minute.
That joke always lands. What's going on? Is it my delivery? Have I lost my touch? Is it my beard getting too white? People just, I don't know. But the point being, if people are interested in writing that book they've always dreamed about, do it. Because there's so many people out there willing to help. You will have more questions than you can maybe stomach. But those of us that have been doing it for a while, we're happy to give advice. You hear about 20 different marketing ways. Well, you know what? Do this one thing first. Should I go wide or be exclusive to Amazon? Well, be exclusive to Amazon first. Focus on writing more books. Do these 2 or 3 things. Don't worry about if it's selling. You know what sells a book really well? And this I know is what Craig Martell always says, writing the next book, because that juices the algorithm for Amazon. And so there's this myriad of things that people don't know. Don't let it stop you. Get writing. And when you get that addiction to the craft, then it starts to become easier. And getting your first $100 month will be the hardest month. Getting from there to 500 is easier than that. Getting to, a few thousand or getting to 10,000, you pick up things along the way. And the most important bit of advice, if I were to give advice, is there's not a shot clock. This game, it feels to most new people like every single day, wow, there's new books in my genre. I've got to hurry. I got to get this out. I'm missing the boat. You know what? People have been writing books since the Gutenberg press. Well, since before then, there's going to always be new books. And the best example of why not to panic is the romance genre. I have maybe 10 romance author friends who are making $100,000 every single month. And
Wow.
I could list them.
Wow.
And you've heard of none of them. The industry is so big and romance readers consume so many books. I can have 10 seven-figure authors that I walk down the street and I can ask 100 people. If I went up to Iowa City, which is 30 minutes from me, and walk down the street, I would be surprised if anybody has heard of more than one of them. There might be, ask 100 people, there might be 2 people that's heard of one on that list. That's how big the market is. That being said, the readers are voracious. And in romance, there's only one story.
Right.
It's person A, person B. There's variations. It can be the same gender. They can be boy, girl. They can, but there's rules. At some point, the guy who is always super hot, I don't even think there's a subgenre of dad bod romance. They're hot. They're all hot. They're often all bad boys, not all bad boys, but mostly bad boys. And they're rock stars and they're billionaires. And it's the same story over and over and over. But the readers tune in because they know there's going to be happily ever after. If they don't get an HEA, they will crucify the author. It is not allowed. You just don't do it. And the Romance Writers of America, I think at their conference, they get 5,000 authors. And the indie authors among them are cranking out 6 to 12 books a year. And that's just the ones that go to the conference. There's literally millions of romance books a year being published to tell one story. And they can't make enough of them. The readers, the thing about romance, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, great, I'm going to write romance. It's also brutal because you can literally be producing a novel a month, and 3 weeks after your last one, from one of your biggest fans, get a nasty email using words like bitch and just so pissed off because it's been 3 weeks. Why haven't you given it a book?
Oh my gosh.
And it's not hyperbole. It's not in jest. They are rabid.
They're mad.
Mouth rabid, the fans. And so if you have a thick skin and you can take the fact that they have low tolerance for that, great, you'll make a lot of money. That being said, I do have an author friend who does 1 book a year and she makes 6 figures. She has figured out a way to connect with her fan base so that they understand she's a wife, she's a mother, she does this full time, but she's just not able to write at that pace. She's very funny. And so she has set the stage where they know it's going to be 9 to 12 months before the next book, and they're fine with it. She puts up all sorts of teasers. Oh, working on the book, making good progress. Would you like to see the cover? And they would. And so she keeps them happy. And that's part of the art of working in that genre and keeping them happy. But most authors don't do that. They just rely on writing all the time. So there's the point of all that is there's a lot of different paths. You can find what you like, write what you want, and somebody out there wants to read it. Sorry, I go on and on.
No, that's okay.
It's been 79.
I just realized that one of my recording devices cut off. So, that's unfortunate.
That's okay. Yeah,
it's the main thing. I have the main recording because I always record in 2 places. It's just that the Zoom recording doesn't make my voice sound as good. You're going to sound fine, but that's unfortunate.
Well, then I'm fine with it.
We do need we do need to wrap it up only because I
haven't let you talk in 20 minutes, so it's not like the recording that cut out had your voice on it anyway.
And that might be true. I just started it up again, and it might work. maybe had a gap in the right place.
There you go.
But yeah, I think I would love to have you on again and just talk books. Which won't happen because it's too fun.
Because clearly, I am not somebody who can follow instructions.
Neither am I. So that has been established. That's how that goes. But I do.
After the next episode, we can declare me a repeat offender, I'm sure.
There you go. Oh yeah, cool. The only reason I'm wrapping it up, I usually don't do this, but today because I'm having surgery tomorrow, I get to go get a rapid test. So I get my first COVID-19 test, and hopefully people who listen to this in 3 years will go, oh yeah, I vaguely remember that. That's our hope.
That would be nice. Well,
that would be nice.
Be safe, my friend, and I will be on the show anytime you want. In fact, because of COVID here, if you ever have a cancellation, I mean, chances are I'll be ready to go. Given 15 minutes notice, I would love to be on your show or sub in if you should have an emergency where somebody doesn't show. I'll step in.
Well, I will keep that in mind.
I mean, I'll need to know what color shirt you're wearing, obviously.
Yeah, well, of course. Well, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. It's been an easy and fun podcast, and the information you give out is it's fantastic. It's really appreciated. So this has been. Were you still talking? This is Joel Albrecht, and on the show today, I've had Brian Meeks. We are going to have about a half a dozen, or maybe a dozen links to all the different things we talked about, if we can remember, and I can get some of those out there. So check out the description, and thanks again for listening. And as always, be good to each other, and in these days, be good to yourself. All right, thank you very much.
That was a good show. You're fun to talk with. I could literally just do this every day.